What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Star Wars Battlefront 3 yet again. I actually covered this on my main channel about a week or two ago. There was initial rumors that DICE was working on the next Battlefield game after 2042, and because of that, not working on Star Wars Battlefront 3. And that came from Tom Henderson, and then this was on Friday. This was at the end of my work day on Friday. I take the weekends off, so I'm trying to do it as early as I can, on Monday. But basically, there was kind of a part two to it as well, where it turns out Battlefront 3 was pitched. So I want to read through at least the initial tweet or the initial quote he kind of said. Battlefront 3 was a pitch title from DICE, but ultimately the title was shot down by EA due to licensing costs. It got turned down because it takes 20% more sales to make the same money, said one past developer. Now, he has been wrong before in terms of saying that somebody has contacted him for something, and then somebody else will say, we'll contact him and say, no, that wasn't true. So he's not the most perfect, leaker in the world, but he does know his stuff, I would say, in particular when it comes to EA and DICE. And so I would be more inclined to believe it, and that's what actually makes it just more sad. So the initial part, right, and again, this was before this tweet was even out, was all he said was like, DICE isn't going to make Battlefront 3 next, they're working on another Battlefield, and I think that was a horrible idea. I didn't like it. I said that in the video, again, a few weeks ago on my main channel, and then you have this, and this really makes my blood boil, because it really comes down to, I don't know, whenever I see these kind of things for movies or games, when it comes to like costs are too high, or the movie or the game would have to make so many sales to be successful. Even actually, if you look, was it Battlefield 5 or 1? One of the last two. Remember when it sold like over 10 million units or something insane, but DICE or EA was like, well, we really were hoping for like 13, 14 to be like, successful. And it's like, if your entire business model is to sell that many, and when you get to say, hey, or maybe it was a little less than 10, maybe it was like 8 million and they wanted to sell 10, it wasn't that far of a gap between what they sold and what they wanted. And like any other game would be happy to make what Battlefield made, and yet for EA it's a disappointment. Like whenever I hear those kind of stories, it just makes me so furious. But even for an example like this, it makes me furious because it really plays into the mindset of how they are developing games versus how I think they should be made. Now that's very armchair quarterbacking it. Obviously it's easier said than done, but you have these situations where it's like, well, yeah, we'd have to sell. So you'd have to sell, 20% more. So that's like 1 in every 5. You'd have to sell that. So it's like, okay, that is a fair amount. Maybe that's an extra million. Maybe that's an extra 1.5 million. Maybe that's an extra 2 to make the same amount of money. But like, you'd be making, I don't know if they know this or not. Maybe they don't. But you'd be making Star Wars Battlefront 3. Firstly, that's never been done before, okay? It's because it's never happened, because there's some sort of curse, some sort of like, I don't know, like Voldemort-like curse on a third game of Star Wars. In fact, I shouldn't have even said his name, because now we'll never truly get it, right? But it's like, for some reason, we can't get a Battlefront 3. But the point is, you'd be making freaking Star Wars Battlefront 3. Do you know how easy it would be to sell that? I mean, they would know. They made Battlefront 1 and 2. And, and by the way, I'm not even like anti-EA with Battlefront. I actually think Battlefront 1 and 2 I think 2 is a really good game. I think the added support they did with adding Anakin, Dooku, Obi-Wan, Grievous, and a lot more, like they did once they got going, they did a really good job of supporting that game, making that game last much longer than I think anybody, including myself, thought the game would last. And then granted, they stopped supporting it and the game completely died. But that makes sense. You know what I mean? But the point is, I think if you just do it right, if you made Battlefront 3 and you cut out all the garbage that you were doing in 1 and 2, because while I liked 1 and 2, I guess mechanically or visually, audio-wise, I mean, they were empty games. They were empty games, so I think the fundamentals were there. To go into like a sports analogy, right? I think they were all there, but I just don't think it was like filled with enough stuff. I mean, how easy would it be just give a Battlefront 3, give the maps, the same maps we've had, and then just, you could give more, like give us Mustafar, give us the maps we've been asking for, give us those, give us all of the heroes and villains you've done, like you have to include them all, right? Grievous, all that. Give us Ahsoka, give us Mace Windu, how hard would it be to sell what you need to make? Even if you need to make more, how hard would it be to do that if you just did it Right. But the thing is, we're in an era of DICE making games like Battlefront 1 and 2 where they are very shaky, if not a complete disaster, upon launch in terms of like loot boxes and obviously stuff that they were experimenting on there. And then on their off days, they make I mean, obviously, Battlefield is their main thing. I'm just kidding. But, you go back and forth. They made Battlefields, and those are not in the greatest place right now. So I think the bigger thing is like, and I would honestly respect them more if EA was like, we had nothing to do with it, even though they obviously do, so they'd be lying. But they'd be like, we have nothing to do with it. DICE, you're not, I don't know what happened to you, but you're not talented enough to do Battlefront 3. We don't think we'd make the money because you just aren't good enough. I'd actually respect them more for talking down to DICE like that. Instead of, well, if the game sells 8 million, we really needed it to, to sell 10. It's like, we'll just make it slightly better then, and I guarantee you'll do it. I mean, again, it's easy to say. It's easy to say. I've never, taken that for anything less than it is. I know that it's easy to say, and I also know, I guess I don't know this, right? We don't know exactly how well the first 2 Battlefront games sold, but obviously the first one did enough to do a second one, and the second one I think did very, very good. You know what I mean? So I really don't know. I feel like it probably has something to do with the fact that they're losing the exclusive license, but it's like I would say that's more of a reason to do it. Like why? And also, well, if that's the excuse, well, why in God's name is Jedi Fallen Order still around? Like, obviously that game sold really well, but see, that again goes to that issue of what they say versus how to actually do it. Remember, Jedi Fallen Order came out at a time where EA was saying, single-player games are dead, nobody wants them, and they, obviously thousands of games proved that wrong, but they themselves proved them wrong with Jedi Fallen Order, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, why was that successful? Because you strapped in, you gave them the time, you gave them the resources. In fact, you actually didn't give them enough time. They said that there was a constraint that they needed to release it, I believe, for episode 9 right before then, so they actually had to rush specifically the ending of Jedi Fallen Order, so they could have been even better. And it's like, you gave them most of the stuff they needed, right? And look what happened. It's an amazing game, and clearly it sold well enough because you're letting them do a second one. I mean, you just would not, and obviously we know that, right? Based off of, well, it needs to make 20% more sales. Well, you would not be making a second Jedi Fallen Order if the first one didn't blow through everything you hoped for. And maybe Battlefront 2 didn't, but it's like, well, the game also started as a complete disaster. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you just don't do that again, then you should be fine. But it's like they don't think that. It's odd. It's odd how these things work. It's odd how these people in the top positions. I mean, I think it's just because they don't know anything about games or how to do anything except for pad their own wallets and their shareholders' wallets. That's all that really matters. This is the kind of stuff that we get. So hopefully somebody else swoops in and we're back to Battlefront 1, which means we get half the heroes and villains we can't get like a, and I really hope, by the way, I just want somebody to make a Battlefront game, but be like, no, you know what? Screw that. We're not going to start at the beginning. Let's give you 20 maps. Let's give you let's just give you like 15 heroes, 15 villains. Now that would be a lot. And I guess why you don't start there, because that's asking a lot. But, I think that's what we all really do want. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. I do a brand new video on the channel every single day, and so hope to see you guys for tomorrow's video.